This book contains a whole bunch of sketches that I did. Well, several sketches because I did them in several sketch pads. But this is one that I did mostly at work. Well, I started at work when I was working basically graves, and man, it was a tough call to take that job. And basically, it was right when I moved from New Orleans here after the hurricanes. I mean, I got tired after Hurricane Katrina. That was it for me. So basically, we moved here to Arizona, and I found a night job. And I realized that we're using really good paper for in the copier. It was acid free and everything. So I took this folder and loaded it with paper and started sketching. This is the first one here that I did there. This sketches were for a painting, basically, that I did for a studio painting. And basically, when I first tried to paint it, it was a mess. I mean, those rocks at Watson Lake were really complicated. This was a painting from that I did from a scene at Watson Lake here in Arizona, and it was a nightmare. So I decided to study the rocks and basically figure out how they really looked, and basically how they separated. I mean, you had rocks, basically rock on top of rock, and a whole bunch of separations here, and shadows, light. It was a nightmare. So basically, this is the first one I did. This was a plein air. I decided to take this also to the lake, and so there's some that were done in the office, some that were done plein air. This is plein air, basically studying the rocks, how they fell, and how basically the shadows fell and all that kind of stuff. This also was done in plein air here. And just basically studying, like I said, studying the rocks. I was trying to figure out how the lights and shadows and everything fell, how the rocks were formed, and that was the main thing. This one also, this was done at the office, basically, and just like I said, just studying the rocks. The rocks have a unique shape, and the shadows and everything. I mean, the challenge painting it was not only the shapes and all that, but also figuring out the colors and the light. I mean, this was in a sunset that I was sketching this, basically from photos that I took in the sunset, and man, the colors were gorgeous. So basically, that was another challenge when I started painting it. This was done plein air, and basically a study at same thing, studying the trees and everything there. This was done, man, I don't remember. I think this is either the office or plein air. It's been a while. So this were done in 2011, but again, you know, just studying how the rocks were separated, how the shadows fell, and these rocks were in the water. It had beautiful reflections. Basically, I ended up calling it Watson Lake Reflections. It was a 30 by 40 painting. It was a large painting. This was done, this was a plein air. I did this in plein air. And basically the same thing, studying the rocks. This was the other side of the rock formations that I was studying here. And like I said, it was tough. I mean, getting the shadows and everything there. This was done in the office. This is one in the office. And man, these trees here, they were growing off the rocks. How in the world can a tree grow from a rock? It's unbelievable. Nature is just something else. I mean, this trees were actually growing on rocks. And it's in between rocks and everything. I don't know how in the world and they were green. I mean, basically, they were not dead at all. And, you know, getting the form of the rocks here, you know, how they are suspended away from the other rocks. And it was a real challenge. But here I was understanding the rocks a little bit more. This one was done in the office. And as you can tell, I started getting tight now in the sketches. I had a little bit more knowledge of how the rocks actually looked, and you know how everything was formed, how they look when they hit against the water and everything. The trees that, like I said, were growing off the rocks. I had a little bit more knowledge of by now of how those rocks actually were formed. You know, the shadows against the texture of those rocks is unbelievable. It's like granite. And I fell once with my easel and I got really scratched. I mean, I got all banged up. I mean, those rocks really tore on my skin. This this was done in the office also, and like I said, I was already getting a little bit tighter. I had more knowledge of how the rocks actually were formed. As you can tell, it's a little bit more detail, how the shadows fell. I mean, basically how the rocks, it's like a rock coming out of a rock, almost like if it's amazing. It was not sitting on it. It was like a rock attached to another rock. And this one was plein air. And this was done with my fountain pen, basically, on location. I did it at the actual lake. This one, okay, this one doesn't belong this far. This is one of the first ones that I did. I placed it in the wrong place. This one was actually one that was done in my early sketches. As you can tell, it's really rough. This one also was done on my early sketches. This doesn't belong this far, because by now I had a better understanding of the rocks. Most of the sketches that I did were tighter, as you can tell by this one here. And if I'm not mistaken, this is either my last one or almost my last one. No, this is almost my last one, and like I got really tight now. This is the main rock in the foreground, and man, the way the light was hitting that rock and separating the lights from the shadows, and then the colors were really nice also. That was the challenge. This rock came out really nice in the painting. Almost the guy that bought the painting said, oh man, that rock is realistic. All right, let's see. This would be now this is the last one for this series here. The rest in the pad are for another painting that I'll do another video on later. But this one here is the last one. As you can tell, man, I got really tight on this one. I mean, I had a huge understanding of how the rocks, you know, were formed by this time, how the shadows fell, the water, how the water, you know, fell next to the rocks, the shadows, and the reflections also. As I said, the painting was called Watson Lake Reflections, and the water had this beautiful reflections from the rocks. It was beautiful oranges and dark browns, and I mean, in blues. The shadows were all cool and blue. I mean, it turned out really nice. It's in my gallery also, and it's, like I said, I was really pleased. And that's the last one, because the other ones are for another painting, and I'll do them in another time. But thanks a lot for watching. And like I said, I didn't have any formal art training. I went into advertising and publishing. That was what I went for when I went to college. But my art teacher that I had, that actually taught me how to paint, a little bit of how to paint, more or less I'm self-taught. But he told me that there is no way to paint something you can't draw. He said, if you can't draw it, you can't paint it, which in a way, you know, if you want to paint it realistic, he's 100% right. Now, if you're just going to throw brushstrokes everywhere and call it a painting, that's a different story. You know, you're going to do it painterly. You don't have to be that tight. But if you're going to do something that is going to represent what you are painting and it's going to look realistic, yeah, you got to be able to draw it. If you can't draw it, you can't paint it. So, but I'll do a sketchbook tour for the other pages. Basically, that would be another painting that I did also from Watson Lake. I've painted a lot of paintings from Watson Lake, and I haven't seen a lot of artists do that. It's weird. I don't know why nobody has painted that lake when it's gorgeous. I haven't seen up to now any paintings from that lake, but it's gorgeous. And most of the paintings I've done from there have sold. So, I mean, it's just, especially when you catch it in the sundown like this one was. I mean, the colors were just vibrating. They were gorgeous. But like I said, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll go ahead and get that other video done for the rest of the pages for the other painting. Thanks a lot.